The Prairie Lures by Mark Anthony Smith. I don't know if I can go through it again. Even in the cold light of day, my palms are sweaty. It was supposed to be the trip of a lifetime. God, I remember being told I was going to Canada. I was asleep in the wagon at the time. I nearly fell out the door when Staff Sergeant told me. I thought I'd get charged for jumping up and down, but he laughed as I kind of lunged forward and said, "Driver Phelps, pack your kit. You're going to Canada for 3 months." My parents were thrilled, of course, and most of the other fellas were off fighting in the Gulf. I was serving in the Royal Corps of Transport. Our job in Alberta was to support the tanks on exercise and drain the town of Medicine Hat of all alcohol. We soon got used to cross-country driving down the slippery Rattlesnake Road at the British Army Training Unit Suffield, or BATUS for short. I never got used to the sub-zero temperatures, though. It was bitterly cold on the prairie. You had to wrap up at night. I went out to support some infantry troops on patrol. It started with a kick as I was awakened from a deep sleep. "It's your watch, man." Fuck, I swore under my breath. It was 2 a.m. and I had to get out of my sleeping bag to sit in a trench for 2 hours. I took a deep breath and counted to 10 and faced the biting winds. The man ahead of me was pleased to be relieved of his duty. I begrudgingly took his place as he muttered, "Thanks," and I grunted. My rifle was freezing cold and I had to wake up as I leaned against a parapet, keeping an eye open for enemy patrols. I lit a cigarette and cupped it so the cherry wasn't visible to anyone who might have been doing reconnaissance. I really couldn't be asked around at this time of night. There was a cluster of trees to my right and flat open ground everywhere else. I felt so pissed off and tired. It was cloudy. My night vision started to improve as I stubbed my cigarette out. Then I noticed lights in the trees. I straightened up. They swam around like will-o'-the-wisps, and I was mesmerized by them. Then I looked at my watch. The 2 hours of guard duty had flown by. I was relieved at 4 a.m. I didn't think of the pleasant distraction in the trees for long as I shivered in my sleeping bag. I soon warmed up and sleep took over. I was later shaken again, the usual rude awakening. I counted to 10, unzipped my bed to face the cold morning. Had a quick wash that nearly froze my nuts off, and I shaved. Then I ate a little oatmeal out of my mess. The day was spent cross-country driving and servicing the tank targets. I fed the gophers some cookies, and then night came. I was called upon to join a reconnaissance patrol. There were reports of enemies in the woods. We set out to see how many there were and what sort of kit they had. We might have needed to call in the artillery or an airstrike if they had field guns. Our job was to stay out of trouble and not be seen. We just had to report our observations. Me and 5 other of the guys had set out on patrol, but only I came back. I can still see the fucking entrails. There was no light as we entered the forest. We had to ghost walk through the trees, and there were branches underfoot, and it was prime tripwire territory. The sky was cloudy again. We took our time so as not to alert anyone. The roosting birds in the trees were calling to each other, and I found this unusually creepy. We were cautious. Then I heard a muffled scream and I dropped to the ground. There was confusion. I waited. "Someone snatched the tail end, Charlie." Oh, for fuck's sake, I thought. We had to find the last man in our patrol, but we didn't. We regrouped. There were arguments and the guys were lashing out. Let's go back. No, we have to carry on. And then somebody else said, oh, for fuck's sake. We decided to abort the recon and return to base. The missing man would be at our last rendezvous, we thought. But he wasn't there. And the trees started to close in on us. We quickened our pace as what little humor we had left turned to fear. This wasn't some crazy joke after all. There was something wrong here. And I thought there were shadows in the trees. We hurried. The shadows were real. And then I suddenly felt alone. And I was cut off from my patrol. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I was absolutely shitting myself. What the hell were those lights last night? As I thought about it, they had been strangely calming, but now the forest was a living hell. I was lost and disoriented. I stopped to find my bearings. And then I saw the bastards. They must have been nearly 10 feet tall. And they weren't Bigfoot, they weren't Sasquatches of any kind, but they walked like men. I'll never forget those dark eyes. Those dark red eyes. It was like looking into a bloodbath. I couldn't help it and I screamed, help! Any notion of being tactical had passed. I was fighting to stay alive. I must have hit every branch as I ran. I dropped my kit and I threw up. There were steaming innards hanging off of branches like perverse Christmas decorations. It was a complete mockery. I threw up again and I ran some more. I ran all the way back and I passed out. On my return to Colchester, there were rumors. None of the guys had come back off patrol. You'll be seeing the commanding officer for manslaughter, one of the guys said. Fuck you, I told him. I was confused. I needed peace and quiet. Whatever those things were, they weren't wolves or escaped animals from the zoo. I think there was something more. Something not of this world. I mean, Christ, they were nearly 10 feet tall. I'm never going to recover from my Canadian trip. It was supposed to be a once-in-a-lifetime blessing. But I lost a lot of good friends to those cannibalistic savages. I'm hoping to get a job on Civvy Street. But until then, I try to stomach a few books on Indian folklore. It's too much. It's too much.